So welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another interview with the St Vincent de Paul Society here. Whether you're finding this on the Well of Hope or through YouTube, you're very welcome. And today we are joined by Brian Humphrey. Welcome, Brian.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to share something of my experiences as part of the SVP. I joined our local conference at St Augustine's here in Darlington around about 8 years ago. And was lucky enough to join a very thriving conference. People were well known within the parish community through the fact that we sold the Northern Cross outside church every on the first Sunday of each month. So people saw us on a regular basis. We made good use of SVP awareness. We kept our people updated with our activities through the bulletin. Through talks from the pulpit, so we were quite well known. We're fortunate in the fact that the group has continued to grow from that point. We now have 16 fully paid up members with a good range of ages, talents, and backgrounds. Very, very soon, I was taken on my first visit to go and, as a Eucharistic minister, to go and visit one of our contacts, one of our guests in their own home. And I very, very soon realized how much of a blessing and an absolute privilege it was to share their faith, to share their experiences, to share their understanding. The things that came over to me was the fact that the number of people who would say there's always somebody else worse off than I am. And I came away from all those initial meetings as having completely changed my view of what it was like to actually be a member of the SVP. And I think it's important to remember those early experiences when we're dealing now with people in a lockdown situation where they can't have the contacts, where they can't have the visits to receive Holy Communion. But we need to remember that we can get much of that back through the limited contact that we can make with those people. I think we need to really remember that.
Wonderful. Well, I mean, that's a really nice story on how you sort of became a member and grew as a member, because you say, you're talking about how you sort of, the more visits you went on, you spotted the same things, and I think it's always the people that are in need in some way that are the most humble.
Exactly.
There's something about when you're losing things that actually you realize, well, where you just sort of you contemplate and you realize so much about yourself. And you become very humble. And I have to admit, I've seen some incredibly humble people through my time as a member as well. It's really interesting, isn't it? Because members always get a different view. But that's a really nice story, actually. So yes, we know that you've been up to some absolutely wonderful work since the outbreak of COVID-19. I think the first thing that the reason we're having this interview is because I heard about the spiritual communion cards that you ended up posting out. But I know you've done so much more. And John Kilgore, the president of Tyne CC, was overflowing with praise for your work. So I'll let you take it away. Please tell us everything you possibly can about all the work you've been doing, all the wonderful stuff.
Well, during the COVID-19 lockdown, we've kept in touch with our virtual Zoom meetings, which have really enabled us to share experiences, to keep up with the news, to find out how the people who we would normally visited are coping with the lockdown, and to share ways in which we can sort of develop the contact that we have with those that we otherwise might have visited. We continue to work on the food bank. We continue to collect donations with the assistance of our parish priest. We have members who distribute food at one of the food banks one day a week, which is a wonderful experience to deal with people of that sort. Very humbling. Great to be involved in an enterprise which essentially is very ecumenical. It's run by the King's Church in a building that's owned by the Church of England, by a group which are predominantly, not exclusively, members of the SVP and therefore Catholic, which I think is a great thing to do. We continue to directly support the more vulnerable in our families by food drops, use of the Tyne Central Scheme, which involves food with the cooperation of Iceland. And we saw just recently 2 families in particular that were able to help, one of whom we've supported in all sorts of very, very practical ways. And we've seen a lady grow from someone who had housing debt to now being on her own 2 feet and actually in employment. We've seen her grow and develop, but we still support her. But the lady who went to visit her on the day of the VE Day celebrations, just said she was totally moved, completely blown away by the reaction of the 2 families when they took a food parcel which has some basics but some little extras for the kids, and that it just brought it home to you how much a difference we can actually make. We ring regularly, email if necessary, where appropriate. People would otherwise have visited, and we've had to deal with. I personally have had to deal with 2 or 3 people who have been concerned about things like their Easter duties. One lady who rang only last weekend, concerned that she thought it was Easter Sunday. And she woke up too late to go to Mass, and she was terribly worried about the fact that she could not get to Mass on that Sunday. She needed a lot of reassurance, so we were able to put in, let family know where she was, what her thinking was at that particular time. We did practical things. After Palm Sunday, we went and left on doorsteps or fastened to lampposts or whatever it might be, palms, copies of the bulletin, for those who couldn't get the online version. And as you've said at the beginning, we sent out prayer cards with a spiritual communion prayer and a short message of support with our contact details for those people that we saw most, which may not have had the phone number to ring us back. We'll do the same thing again at Pentecost, I would imagine, just to keep that contact going.
Wonderful. Yeah, so much good work. And I remember you were also telling us about I remember last time we spoke you saying about how you'd had to buy it was a Samsung telephone and was it a laptop for another family that were struggling to communicate or struggling to get work done at home. That was fantastic as well.
Well, we did in 2 ways. We supported the food bank by the provision of a laptop for them,
Oh, that was it.
that they could effectively and efficiently keep their records for the sessions that we operated on a Friday morning. So it's kind of a slightly unusual way of using SVP funds, but it's allowed the whole process of distributing the food to those in need to become more efficient, more effective, and therefore we felt it was a good way to use some of the money we had. We also spent a sum of money to buy a new tablet, which we donated to one of the local care homes to allow them, their residents, to keep in touch with families at this time when face-to-face contact obviously is completely out of the question. They had 2 tablets for, I think it's just about 90 patients, so we contributed a 3rd one to them. And in our most recent meeting, we've decided to contact 4 further care homes with the idea of extending that sort of assistance into them as well, which will be is something that we'll look into doing fairly shortly, because we felt it was a way in which we could impact on many people, and also particularly on as well as the residents themselves, on a whole range of family members who otherwise have no contact with them at all.
Oh, wonderful.
And that's what we're looking to do next.
I remember because you're in some ways that you've done your normal work and it's just sort of grown from there. And the needs sort of come to you in some ways. But we were talking about how, especially in terms of vulnerable and ill, but actually the need is further than that before. And you were talking about West Brom Football Club and how the people that you think might need help aren't exactly actually quite the people that do. So it actually we were surprised. We were both surprised of the people that sort of needed help. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that idea, actually? Because you just had a conference meeting today, fresh out. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that? Because it was a really interesting reflection, actually.
We had a conference meeting just a couple of hours ago, and there are a few things that came out which were a great surprise to many of us. A member of our conference had been reading a book by Adrian Charles, who most of us didn't know. He was a Catholic, and he was recounting his involvement with a well-known Premiership football club, who resolved that they were going to ring every season ticket holder in a certain category. Well, whether it was a certain age, I don't know how that works. And we developed that into thinking, well, could we do something along those lines with our parish community? We talked through the process. We talked through the idea of trying to obtain lists from the parish, but there were possibly data issues in that one, and ended up with the idea that we probably all knew, at least as a starting point, half a dozen people that for one reason or another we might make contact with. Out of all that came the notion that one of our members, who seemingly on the outside of things is quite an extrovert character, larger than life character, unbeknownst to us, is spending much of his time in semi-isolation, and he would have been one who would have appreciated a phone call. He was one that we would never have dreamt of doing that. The member who started all this conversation off actually has a wife and 4 children. He'd had a phone call from the parish priest, from Father Gordon, which was, he said it was absolutely amazing, but he's working. He is in a very supportive family. He's not vulnerable. He's not in need. He's not short of family support, but he really welcomed the fact that Father Gordon had taken the trouble to ring him. And we realised then just how many other people, and our parish priest is very good at keeping in contact like that. Could we extend the idea into the wider community? And we came to the conclusion that you don't need to be sick, you don't need to be vulnerable, you don't need to be elderly, you don't even need to be a Catholic to benefit from some kind of contact, whether it's a phone call, whether it's an email, whether it's a visit, to do a little job cutting someone's grass verge down the road, along those lines. And one thing that came out was that one person we must not forget to make contact with is in fact our parish priest. He's the one who we often see as being the person who provides the emotional and spiritual support. We mustn't forget the fact that he's a man who's on his own. He's saying Mass for us online every week. He's on the end of the phone regularly, as we all know. Every time we speak to someone, we always hear that Father Gordon's been on the phone over the last week. We must not forget that he also has his need for support. And so I don't think he would mind if we all rang him in the course of a week. We mustn't forget to do that. And I think that the last line with that whole thing was that we don't know the power of the phone call. We must never understand the power of the telephone call, and that's what we want. We aim to do over the next few weeks.
That's wonderful, actually. The power of the telephone call.
Yeah,
who'd have thought we'd be saying that, eh? No, brilliant. That's really good advice, and a great thought as well, actually. I don't know many parishes that are just reaching out to everyone. I know a lot of conferences, a lot of parishes that have gone through their list and tried to find people that are vulnerable. But actually, that's a great realization, isn't it? That we could just phone everyone, and you've actually got no idea who needs support at the moment, and it could be anyone. It could even be someone who you work with or who you see quite regularly. So, in these Mondays.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, wonderful. Is there anything you would like to add, Brian? Anything that you think the members would benefit from knowing, or anything you'd like to say, or anything at all?
Well, just to extend that idea there about not knowing, which of our members, and we mustn't forget to look close to home. We were surprised. I think we're all surprised in our conference meeting at the comments that some of our members made about the fact that how much they would appreciate. We do know that there are one or two of our conference who have particular needs at this time, but we mustn't forget to look at those who are closest to us, because often they're the ones that it's easiest to forget. And I think going back to what I said at the beginning is never to forget the feelings that we had when we first started to visit people, and to realize the positive impact we were having by our ability to take the Blessed Sacrament to them on a Sunday, that they can still get a lot of that in a virtual way, and never to forget that that's what we're trying to do.
That's wonderful. No, brilliant. Thank you very much. And it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, Brian. And this is actually our second attempt. So
Yeah.
my fault. So you've done extremely well. I've been very patient with me. So I very do appreciate it. And I'm sure all the members out there will find, I know everything you're doing is exceptionally good. And I know all the members out there are gonna really benefit from hearing about it. So thank you very much. It's very kind of you to join us.
Okay.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us as well. And whether you found this through YouTube or through the SVP website, specifically on the Well of Hope, we'd love you to continue enjoying all the other resources, especially some of the other interviews and recordings. There's quite a selection on there for you. But if you are actually interested in the work of the St Vincent de Paul Society, then there's lots more information on our website. We have a crisis page specifically set up to tell you about the COVID-19 effort that's going on. The Well of Hope also has ideas for you to do in your community. So if you're looking for things to get your community back up and running, there's an entire page on there. But also, if you are in need and you're suffering during this crisis, please don't suffer in silence. There are telephone numbers, there are email addresses, there's all sorts of advice on our website. Please give us a ring, please get in touch. We'll be absolutely delighted to help you, absolutely delighted. Alternative, if you want to make a donation and you'd like to make a donation specifically to people at the moment who are suffering during this crisis, then you can do that through our website, or you can give us a ring, whatever's easiest for you. But as always, it's key for me to end and say that, again, you are all in our prayers. And we really do appreciate you joining us today. And just know that whatever work is going on out there, whether you're a member or not, you are in our prayers and we're in our thoughts as well. And we would ask anyone out there to keep everyone here in their prayers as well, specifically people like Brian who are trying exceptionally hard to make this crisis copable. So thank you very much for joining us. And we'll leave you there, and we hope to see you in another recording. All right, thank you very much. Bye.